Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to lecture 7 of the course Fruit Production. And this lecture will focus primarily on fruit production in Oman. And so we'll cover different parts of the country and what kind of crops are grown. As you're already aware, Oman is a completely diverse country. There is huge differences or variations in the geography as well as the climate. You already know that Oman has two main mountain chains, the Hajar Mountains in the north that extend from Sindem all the way to Sharqiya, and also we have the Dhofar Mountains, basically Samhan, Al-Qamar, Al-Qara. In the north we have the eastern Hajar, and then we have the western Hajar, and Jabal Akhdar is really the most important agricultural area in the western Hajar Mountains of Oman, as well as Salala, which is also characterized by the annual monsoon, as we will come to see later. So Oman is extremely diverse. It is located in the northeastern part of the Arabian Peninsula. The area of Oman is about 309,500 kilometers square, and the total area straight lines 1,700 kilometers. The straight line, of course, it is much more than that when it comes to the coastal area of the country. However, the total area is about 310 square kilometers. Oman is largely desert though, like more than 75% of the country is desert. Almost in this area there's no vegetation. The rainfall is very little. It gets less than 50 millimeters annually. Nonetheless, the remaining area is really very variable in terms of, as I mentioned, in topography, in the mountains, and also in the slopes, in the plains, as well as the mountain. There's also differences in the climatic characteristics. As you know, Oman in the north is subtropical. Up in the mountain, it is temperate. In southern Oman, it is monsoon tropical climate along the coastal areas of Salalah. As you can see here, this is illustration of what it is like. So you can see the dry mountains here, but these mountains get plenty of rain in the winter. Then you have the large area of the desert. You can see the sand dunes in the middle of the country. So this is basically this area, and you can see the Wusta, part of Sharqiya, and parts of Al-Dakhliya, parts of Dhofar. It's really sand dunes, like a part of the empty quarter, part of the Sharqiya sands. And in the south, as you can see here, it's totally different, especially during the monsoon season, which is usually between somewhere between maybe June, July, August, or sometimes all the way to September. So this is what you see if you go to Salalah during this time, and everybody knows this kind of tropical climate. So we usually characterize this as subtropical climate, and this is of course desert arid climates, and this is usually classified as tropical climate. So the different kinds of fruit crops are grown depends on which climate they are located at. Now, in terms of agroclimatic zones, these climatic zones that I just talked about, the subtropics, the tropics, the desert, the agroclimatic zones are the reason for the high biodiversity of Oman fruit crops because of the topography and climatic variations. As I already mentioned to you, the altitude can go all the way to 1,400 and above 3,000, almost 3,000 meters above sea level in the Hajar Mountains or Jabal Shams. There's huge variations in the rainfall. For example, in some parts of the country, it gets about 400 millimeters annually, like Jabal Akhdar, and also in Salalah because of the monsoon. And in other parts of the country, they get very little in desert areas like Thamrat, like Al-Wusta. So if you see the total average rainfall in the country, Oman usually gets around 100 to 122 millimeters annually. But in certain areas like Qsir, Jabal Akhdar, it gets about 300 to 400 millimeters annually. And compare that to Sahar, about 100, Thamrat, about 50. So this is the Dhofar coastal areas where they get plenty of monsoon. Here, the climate is different than the northern part of the country. So if we compare these two regions, you can see here, this is Sikh. You can see the high average can be about 35 to 30, whereas the low, so this is high and this is high and this is low temperature. You can see the difference between this and this about 35 degrees. This is typical temperate to subtropical climates. So it can get very low, -5, sometimes it gets to be -7 degrees Celsius in the winter, in December. But during the summer times also, it does not reach 40. Whereas if you go to Nizwa or to every other parts of the country, it gets really above 40. When you look at Salalah, Salalah is tropical. So this is basically temperate to subtropical. This is usually classified as tropical. You can see the temperature here much higher. And the band narrows. It can reach 45 actually, but on average they are about 40. On average here about 15. So the difference between these two is really not much. Okay, so it's like 25 degrees between this one and that one. Whereas here you can see the difference is very big. It's like 35. So this is what makes it tropical, and this is what make this one subtropical. The differences between, as I mentioned to you before, differences between day and night temperatures, and also differences between summer and winter, which is basically the difference between the maximum temperature and the minimum temperature during the summer and during the winter, and also between day and night. Okay, so let's get to zone 1. Where is the zone 1 in Oman? Zone 1 is basically الباطنة coast والشرقية coast. So it's all coastal areas. What makes this zone different than others? Because of the rain. The rain is really about 100 millimeter annually, but the characteristic is high temperature and high humidity. So high relative humidity is very high, temperature is also very high. So this is where basically this whole area is zone 1. So all the plants that are cultivated in this area are considered subtropical, and they are part of the zone 1. These are coastal areas. Temperature is very high, humidity is also very high, but the rainfall is around 100. The other climatic zone, number 2, is Dakhliya and Zahra. This is basically the interior. The only difference between this one and that one is the humidity. So humidity here, relative humidity is lower than the coastal areas. Temperature is still cooler during the winter and very hot during the summer compared to the coastal areas. But the rainfall is about the same, about 100 millimeters. So usually the difference is in temperature. Temperature variation is really huge during the summer and winter in these two regions, Dakhliya and Dhara. But humidity is lower, of course, because they are far away from the sea. In Dakhliya to Dhahra area, there is in the middle and between these two regions, there's the Hajar Mountains that separates the coastal area from the desert area. It's just in the middle. That's where the most rainfall happens. It's about 345 millimeters annually, every year. They get this much rain. Okay, there's also very high altitude mountains where the temperature is dropping to below 0 Celsius. So the high altitude makes the temperature go very, very low. So this one has a lot of rain, high rain. Also, the temperature is very low during the winter time. Okay, this is very good climate for what? For deciduous fruit crops, for things like pomegranate, for things like apple, pear, peach, apricots, these kind of deciduous fruit crops. They get enough chill units that we explained before that at this altitude, and they usually perform very well. And this is where Dhahra, this is Dakhliya, and also this is where Dhahra is. So this is desert climate away from the ocean. So that's why this is characterized as zone number 2. Zone number 3 is basically the desert region of Oman, Lusta. That's where away from the ocean. Okay, so there very little agriculture because the amount of rainfall is very low, so low rain. But remember, the temperature is extremely high during the summertime. Most of the crops will not tolerate this temperature. Relative humidity is also very low during most of the year. So very little agriculture is really in a Rosta area. It's only a scattered oasis system that is being grown of date palm mainly date palm. No other crops are grown during fruit crops, I mean, during this because of the high temperature during the summertime and also because low rainfall, no water resources for irrigation. So this is where we are talking about agroclimatic zone number 3, which is basically the desert area. Finally, the agroclimatic zone number 4 is the sub or monsoon region or monsoon climate, which is technically like a tropical, subtropical fruit crops zone where tropical crops like for example, not date palm, but date palm is far away from this zone. Date palm closer to Najd where it is really desert climate. But the monsoon climate is the coastal area of Salalah, and that's where we get and monsoon every year from the Indian Ocean. Usually, as I mentioned before, it goes from May, June to August, September. It gets plenty of rain, 200 to 60 above the average of the rest of the country. Crops grown here is mostly things like coconuts, for example, and papaya, banana, and these tropical crops. So this area is really tropical, and so many of these crops are grown here in this area. This is again because of the high rain and moderate temperature. The temperature is here is moderate. It's not too high and not too low. This is where it is, the coastal area, especially here. It's called climatic zone number 4. Okay, so based on this, Oman has a whole variety of fruit crops, including temperate crops or deciduous fruit crops like palm fruits, like apple, pear, quince, stone fruits like peach, apricots, plums, as well as nut crops. For example, you could almonds, walnuts, cashew, and all these other nut crops that you already know. So that is basically grown in Jebel Akhdar. Whereas here, subtropical fruit crops, subtropical here include all of these: citrus, date palm, olives, and pomegranates. These two require cold temperature, so they actually grow also in Jebel Akhdar. But these other two, they grow throughout the northern plains. So this is the northern plains where these two crops grow. The third variety of crops is tropical fruit crops like coconut, mango, banana, papaya, guava, and ananas. And this depends on the crop. For example, coconut, banana, papaya, guava, for example, these are grown in Salalah because of the climate is really good for them. Mango, not much in Salalah because a lot of the crops is not really polyembryonic, and inshallah we'll get to know this. But most of the anona is really grown in Al-Batin area. Also in Al-Batin, these other crops are also grown. So all of these, except for coconut, they are commercially grown in Batin area. That's why Al-Batin is the most important region in agriculture for Oman. Other thing that are also classified as fruit crops, or they are consumed as fruit crops, we have two wild varieties or wild plants, basically ziziphus and nabq, and also Monotheca boxifolia اللي هو البوت. So boot is also very important food crop in the country that people harvesting every year, as well as ziziphus, which is nabq, and these are all wild, but they are harvested as fruit crops. They are consumed as fruit crops. They are not cultivated, but they are consumed as fruit crops. So here some of the statistics. You can see date palm is the most important fruit crop. In general, fruit crops occupy about 50% of the total area. So in Oman, 50% of cultivation is fruit crops. Out of this, 80% date palm. So really, date palm is very important. Date palm is 80% of the 50%. Okay, so the percentage of fruit area is date palm. After date palm comes the banana, then lime and mango, almost the same amount or the same number of trees or area cultivated. Then comes coconut, papaya, and other fruit crops. So these are really the main fruit crops, which is basically date palm, banana, lime, mango, coconut, papaya. Okay, so you can see here again the graph. 82% of all fruits is date palm, followed by mango, lime, coconut is about 1%. All the other ones, including papaya, is 9%. So if you look at Oman, the most important crops are these three, basically: lime, mango, and date palm. These two can be grown anywhere, and even now date palm is grown also in Najd. It's part of Dhofar Governorate. So basically, these are the three most important fruit crop in the country. All of them combined about 90% of all fruit crops in Oman. So basically, fruit crop here, more 90% of it is date palm, mango, and lime. Even though lime has declined because of witch's bloom, mango also has been lost for witch's bloom. Okay, so for the date palm, Oman is about 8 to 9 in the world in production of date palm, which is about 6 million tons every year. Oman is producing about 4% of the 6 million tons of the world. Oman now produces about 300K, which is 300,000 tons of dates every year. So Oman date palm is very traditional crop that is grown everywhere. And this is in Al Hamra. You can see this old village, and you can see this is where the date palm is always grown, in the northern part, in the mountain oasis, or it is in the coastal area. So where most of the date palm is found, a lot of the date palm is actually found in Batna, which is 42% of all production. Then Zahra, Dakhliya, Sharqiya, these are all important. So you can see that date palm is almost grown everywhere throughout Oman. But this basically, the northern part of the country is where most of the date palm is. There's about 8 million date palm actually in the country. These are the cultivars that are very important in Oman. There is about 200 of them, 180 females, about 20 male cultivars. But out of this 180, 75% of them are only 10. So if you look at this 200, we only use 10 out of 200. Okay, and these 10 are Silla, Mabsli, Qsab, Nagal, Fard, Shahl, Khanezi, Khalas, Medloki, and Barni. So certain fruit crops are very important than others, like Fard, like Khalas, Khanezi, Qsab. These are well known. The rest, like Mabsli, is used for cooking. Silla is used for animal feed mostly, but some people still consume it. The rest are common in Sharqiya area and Bidvid in some of these areas like Barni, like Shahid, like Madloki. But all of these constitute 75% of all date palm in Oman. So this is really very important cultivars. But we still have a lot of them. We have 200. So we are only using, out of 200, we're only using 190. We are not using 190 varieties. We are only using about 10% as gross production. The good thing in Oman is it has a long season. We start harvesting dates in May. We can continue. Usually Nagal is the first one, and then last one usually Khasab and also Hilali. it stays all the way to November. So this is a typical traditional farm of date palm. This is the irrigation system here, usually by a flag. This is clearly traditional irrigation system by flooding, not modern irrigation system. And you can see this is fard. It's very clear from the picture. And here you have these varieties of date palm at different stages, like halali, like fard, like qasab, khnezi, and khalas, and so on. So a lot of the fruits is harvested, but only not much used, right? Humans consume about 50% of all dates. The remaining is really used for animal. It's surplus. Little bit is also about 5% exported to outside of Oman. So there is still waste. Large number of dates are wasted. About 20% of the dates are wasted. They are not used by humans or animals or for export. Therefore, we need to improve the usability of dates in this country. So what are the problems that come with date palm? Mainly the dubas bug is a big problem. Red palm weevil is a big insect, also a problem. So these are all insect problems. We have also drought affecting the dates, soil water salinity in coastal area. Remember, the Batana coast has the large number of dates. So if we have salinity there, we lost our dates. In the central Oman, we have desertification, tasahhur. So we have a problem there. Also, labor is an issue because most of the labor is really expatriate labor. Okay, and we have a major problem with marketing, as you know. That's why we are not using all the varieties. We are only using 10 varieties. The rest are all not marketable. As for the mango, inshallah, we'll talk about mango in detail. But mango has been in Oman for a long time, more than 200 years, according to history. They are grown everywhere in Oman. And most common one is monoembryonic or the Indian type, the one we see, and the one we see traditionally grown fiqrayat in many other parts of the country is really the Indian type. Certain variety they produce all around the year, مثل permasi. So permasi is a variety of mango that can be harvested throughout the year. Where mango exists, mostly in the Batana area, okay, both north and south. Also, it is available in Zahra, Sharqiyya. Also, some in Dakhliya and Muscat as well. But most of it is in Al-Batana area. What are the problems with mangoes? This issue with mango is very sensitive to drought and also to salinity, which is we have a big problem. We lost so much mango because of salinity. We also lost mango because of mango sudden decline. Too many problems. And we lost about 60% of the mango because of the ceratocystis that affected the mango, causing mango sudden decline. Other pests are stem borer, midge malformation. There are also a lot of physiological disorders that inshallah we'll cover in the class about mango. This is mango sudden decline. You already probably know about it from the pathology lectures, but this is the bark beetle that transfers the disease from one tree to the other. And so this is the ceratocystis that is causing the disease of mango sudden decline. Again, this is how much trees are lost. The disease started in 1998. By 2002, we lost about 60% of all trees. You can see that it is too much, very quick. That's why it is called sudden decline, because it happens suddenly. It kills the tree. Citrus is also very important in Oman, especially lime, but there is other fruit crops like oranges and grapefruit and other fruit trees. But most important thing is lime. You can see the lime Citrus aurantifolia. It produces huge amount of fruit, and it is cultivated throughout Oman also. But again, the most important area is Al-Batna area. But it is equally there important in Zahra, Dakhliya, and Sharqiyya. This is also very important, as well as other regions like Abu Farum, Sandam. But the most important area is really Al-Batna coast. That's where most of the lime is present. Number about 500,000 trees. The problem with as you know, with Lyme, which is broom disease of Lyme. And you can see here that the disease caused by phytoplasma kills most of our trees. Another crop besides the mango, the lime, um, the date palm is also coconut, similar to date palm, the most important crop in the far, especially in the coastal area. Of course, by default, because it's a tropical crop, the most important region for coconut is the far, but it is also grown in other parts of the country, mostly not for commercial use, mostly for landscape or as filler trees in some of these areas, but not much. The most important is in the far. Another most important crop is banana. As you know, banana is widely cultivated, especially in Al-Batina and Salala in the southern part of the country. So they do very well in these two countries, and inshallah we'll explain the details of banana in the banana lecture. Other fruit trees are including deciduous fruit crops. That means these are the trees that drop their leaves during the winter time. They go through dormancy. That's why we call them deciduous, because they lose their leaves. These are mainly in the north, mainly في الجبل الأخضر, mountainous region of Oman. They grow at high altitude, above 2000 sea level, include pomegranates, grapes, palm fruits, stone fruits, nut crops, and I mentioned some of these to you before. There is also other fruit trees, like they call them minor. They are available, but they are not grown commercially. They are grown in some farms, specifically like for different reasons. People like them, like the anona, like passion fruit, like chico, like papaya. So this is not totally cultivated, but they are minor and they can be grown. Actually, you can grow any kinds of crop in Oman. Oman is really adapted to grow all kinds of fruit crops. This is papaya, cultivated in Dhofar, and also this is guava, grown in northern Oman. This is from AES, and you can see really the quality of the fruit is really very nice. Anona, mustafil, it's common in Barka, في النخل, في العوابي, في هذه المناطق, which is in South Batana. Okay, so this is where most of these food crops. They can also be grown in the far as well, and Dakhliya. Chico used to be a lot in Al-Batana area, and they still can be cultivated. They can see them cultivated in Salala. They can be cultivated in Al-Batana a lot, not in much in many other areas. Olive, as I mentioned before, can be cultivated in many areas, but they stay green. They don't produce fruits if they are in Al-Batana or they are in Muscat or anywhere else. But in the north, in the mountainous region of Oman, they can be cultivated and they produce fruits like in Jabal Akhbar. Crops like mulberry is also important, and they produce very large fruits throughout Oman, even in mountain areas. So this is very popular fruit among people, but they don't grow commercially too. Other fruit and wild trees like bidam or Indian almond, Luz al-Hindi, and so this is also common in Oman. It's not grown commercially again. It's mostly like a garden plant or a street plant, but it does produce very good fruit and in large quantity in most of Oman. Avocado is also cultivated, especially in the far and some parts of Al-Batini, and it did very well. This is prickly pear, Tinshoki, and you can see it produces large amount of fruit, especially in colder climates, in mountain area. They like the mountains. They like cold climate, but they can grow in other places. However, they produce very good crop in mountainous climates. Coffee is the most important crop in the world. In Oman, they can be cultivated. This is cultivated in Qirun Hareti, in the far. So it can be cultivated in many countries. This picture is from Qirun Hareti, and they are still there, and people can grow them actually. Coffee plant. This plant is not a coffee plant. It's always confused by, and people ask all the time about it. And so this is jatropha. It's an oil crop actually. I mean, oil, biofuel, biodiesel crop, not a fruit crop. And people confuse this with coffee. It's not coffee. This is the coffee, and it is in Salala, and it does very well. Pineapple is also grown in the far, and Salala climate is very good for pineapple. However, remember, pineapple take about 2 years to produce fruit trees. 2 years. If you want it to be faster, you have to apply gibberellin or hormone to make the tree grow faster and produce fruit, and they will produce fruit in 7 months. So from 2 years, it will take you 7 months to get this fruit, but it can be grown. You saw this in the lab, dragon fruit. It can also be cultivated, and this is in the far. This one is also grown in Salala, and they are like cactus, so they can be cultivated fine. Passion fruit also can be cultivated in different parts of the country, and they do very well in, again, in the far. So breadfruit, another crop. We used to grow it at AS, so it can be grown in Al-Batina, it can grow in Sharqiyya, it can grow in coastal area. It needs some humidity. So the far, Sharqiyya, and Batina is very good for breadfruit. Carambola is a tropical plant that can be cultivated in the far. So it's very successful in the far region, Salala, because it is tropical. It can also be cultivated in Al-Batan and Sharqiyya. What it needs is high humidity. It needs to be having high humidity. Of course, it has to be irrigated as well. It doesn't like dry, hot weather. It doesn't like this. So carambola is another crop that's cultivated in Oman, and you can see there are so many different crops that are cultivated in the country, and this is only an example or sample of it. Actually, there is no crop that cannot be cultivated in Oman. As I told you before from the beginning, there is a huge diversity of climate, diversity of topography in the country that allows for the cultivation of so many crops. So many fruit trees can be grown in this country. So this is basically an overview of the most important fruit trees that can be cultivated in Oman. And so this is the last one. I wish you good luck and thank you for listening. Goodbye.